My name is Nancy Kellner, and I'm a recovering attorney. It's much more difficult to recover from being an attorney than it is to recover from breast cancer. It sticks with you a lot longer. I still have nightmares about timesheets. I'm one of the three co-founders of WeCanRowDC, which, as you've probably heard, is a
team of breast cancer survivors that rose together. I'm Doris Parker. I'm the co-founder of WeCanRowDC. Well, I was a breast cancer survivor in 2002, and as part of my recovery, I discovered rowing as a sport. I had never done it before, but it looked like it would be fun, and I figured at that point I had nothing to lose. I was just wanting to come back and feel normal again. So I went to the boathouse near my home in Alexandria, and I asked them if I was too old to learn to row, and they said no. So I just loved it. The minute somebody put an oar in my hand, I was just totally hooked on it. And I realized pretty shortly that it was also healing me, because in the process of doing something new and doing something in a group and also doing something very physical, that I was recovering from all of the effects of the surgery and the treatments that I had been through the past 2 or 3 years. So it was just an eye-opening and life-changing experience for me.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, I was embarking upon what was supposed to have been a sabbatical year from practicing law. And so I was all set to take my year off and regroup and figure out what I wanted to do. Promptly got sick with a bad sinus infection, but this was sort of endemic. One thing and another, I scheduled my yearly mammogram for the end of the year. So I went in, and I'd been having mammograms for screenings since I was 40. So I really wasn't terribly concerned. I had been going through this, I had gone through it a number of times. In early January, I got a call saying that I needed to go back for more films. So I thought, great. I went in, they took more films, and then they ushered me in for a sonogram because they saw a black dot about the size of a pea. And that's when everything became insane. The radiologist told me that I needed to contact a surgeon, that I needed to schedule a biopsy. And, at this point is when the wind starts rushing in your ears.
I was pretty devastated because I thought I was going to have to quit my job. And I had just moved to Alexandria. We'd only been here about 3 months when that happened. And so I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a community. And so I was pretty devastated with it. And plus, I was a very healthy person. I had stayed active. I had done all the things that people are supposed to do to maintain their health. And here I was, with a cancer diagnosis. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't get my head around it.
I was diagnosed on my 42nd birthday, which wasn't a very happy day. It was totally unexpected. I was in a study at the Naval Hospital, Bethesda, and they said, "Oh, you're fine." And like a year later, I had a breast cancer diagnosis. I'm Beverly Buffkin. I'm one of the co-founders of WeCanRowDC. Well, I had had a mammogram 6 months prior, and then I found a lump, and the lump was growing pretty quickly. So, it was growing exponentially, and over 3 weeks from when I found it to when I had the biopsy, and then like 2 weeks later I had a bilateral mastectomy, and it had grown to the size of a plum, so it was very fast. But when I was diagnosed, I was working a lot. I wasn't exercising a lot. I was a defense contractor, and we did war games, and my cancer diagnosis came right as we were finishing up a war game, which is like a big conference, a big seminar. So it was a lot of stress. I think that probably contributed to it. I have 2 boys. They were in 5th grade and 8th grade at the time, so it was hard for them to, have a mom with cancer. They thought I was going to die.
One of my principal goals was getting back on the water as quickly as possible. I learned how to row in 2002, and because I had done a fundraiser with a friend for Georgetown Visitation's girls crew team, it absolutely captivated me from the first time I got into a boat, and it was something I really wanted to do.
The river has always been appealing to me, and I think that Alexandrians don't utilize it as much as we could. And also, during my treatment, I was driving up and down the George Washington Memorial Parkway to go to Bethesda to get my chemo and so on. And I would see those rowers out there on the river in the morning, and it just, for some reason, it just looked like something that was really fun and really challenging, and a way to connect with both nature and other people. And because, again, I was new to the community, I was just looking for that sort of connection. And so rowing seemed like to fit the perfect bill, even though I had never done it before and I didn't know anybody who had ever done it. I tried to stay healthy, I tried to stay active, and it really helped with my recovery. But at the end of that period of time, I felt like I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try a new challenge. And I think a lot of people, after they've been through a cancer diagnosis, have a sense that they shouldn't be waiting for something to happen again before they try something that they've always wanted to do. So I went to this fly fishing thing, and I didn't like fly fishing particularly. I didn't catch any trout, but the whole idea of going away from my home and spending a whole weekend with women who had been through the same thing that I'd been through, and just doing something that wasn't just talking about our cancer, but was actually learning a new skill, or relating to people on that kind of a level, was really, really appealing to me. And I got the idea that maybe we could apply those same values to a weekend of rowing. And that's when I earnestly got in touch with other people who had, other breast cancer survivors who had been rowing as well.
It was one of my fellow rowers at PBC. They had told me about Doris. We met for lunch like once a month, I think, for, 6 months, until we were like, okay, we're ready to go. We just need some rowers to teach them how to row. Jumping back in the rowing, head first was my way of getting back to health, and it did bring me back to health. I mean, I was thrilled and, just exhilarated by practice. So it was, just coming back to life and, coming out of that gray chemo cloud that kind of envelopes you as you're going through treatment.
In 2004, I was the representative to the board of directors at Capitol for this evening program. And I was at a board meeting, and the then president said, I got a call from a woman named Doris Parker, who rows at ACR, Alexandria Community Rowing. And she's interested in starting a chapter in DC of something called We Can Row, which is for breast cancer survivors. Would anybody be interested in taking this on? And the 3 of us got together for lunch and we planned the first Learn to Row weekend.
Well, when the three of us got together, we decided we were going to start this Learn to Row weekend project where we would pull as many newly diagnosed breast cancer survivors together and teach them the fundamentals of rowing over the weekend. It was a weekend in May of 2005. And we advertised it in the Washington Post, which is a little tiny paragraph, one morning, and by 8 o'clock my phone was ringing off the hook. People were very interested in trying this thing. So we were pretty surprised and taken a little bit off guard, but we went ahead and ran the weekend and with 16 survivors. And at the end of the weekend, one of the survivors came to us and said, "What's next?" And we kind of just looked at each other because we hadn't really planned what was next. We were so wrapped up in just doing this one thing that we hadn't really thought it through. So that's when we decided we were going to, do a summer program and try and keep it going. It was just a great chemistry among the women.
It was hard. It was a lot of work. And just all the planning that went into it, so much planning. And it was really just me and Doris and Nancy, and there were some people at Capitol and some of our friends. They all chipped in to help, and it was just so much work. And by Sunday afternoon, I think we were all exhausted.
Getting to the boathouse, seeing the shells, watching women carrying the oars out to the dock, it was the first real ray of hope that I could get my life back. And it was an enormously cathartic and supportive environment. These women had a passion for something that I loved, rowing, and they had been through similar or even more challenging diagnoses than I. I was so relieved. I was so relieved it was something that I could still do, because it's a hard sport and I was just getting started. So that gave me purpose to get back in the gym and train, to get back in the gym and get flexible and stronger and prepared to get back on the water.
A lot of the women that have tried rowing with us did it because it was something different. It was just a little bit more different than something else that they've done in the past. And they felt, as I had, that doing something a little bit challenging was what they needed at that point to help them through the hump from being a patient to a survivor. I would definitely tell any survivor that even if they thought they could never try this sport or thought of themselves as an athlete, or even if they were kind of afraid of water, that they should definitely give it a try.
I think about the memories of breast cancer and rowing as a way to wellness. I think that played a key component in my recovery. When you row, you have to keep your head in the boat, and that's what I tell the ladies. Once you have your oar in the oar lock and you're getting ready to put your foot in, your head's in the boat. Don't think about work, don't think about your kids, don't think about what you're going to make for dinner or what you're going to do at work the next day. This is your time to be in the boat with your teammates, and this is your time for yourself.
It's enormously rewarding to watch women who are scarred and battered and tired and unsure of what their bodies can do come out on the other end and lift a boat, to exert themselves physically, to really get lost in learning this highly technical and challenging sport and feel accomplished, feel like, not only did they beat cancer, but they are stronger than they ever have been.